Hey everybody, Steve Bellman here. Thanks for joining me. Hey, today we're going to talk about relative keys. We're going to define what that means and we're going to see how that can benefit us in our progression writing. The first thing I want to talk about, there are, for every major key, there is a relative minor key that shares the same notes, the same chords, and the same key signature. This is what we mean when we say relative keys. So again, every major key has a relative minor key and vice versa. Every minor key has a relative major key. So today I'm going to show you first what that means, defining it, what is the relative minor, and then secondly, how can we apply it to our chord progression. Okay, so as always, we're going to start with the key of G. And if you're not sure about the harmony of the major scale and the natural minor scale, I would refer you back to the series I did, Harmony for Songwriters. I think it was video 2 and video 4 covers both the harmonized major scale and the harmonized minor scale. This is going to be a little bit different in that was the parallel relationship. This is going to be the relative relationship, but the chord qualities will be the same. Okay, so if we look at G major, let me play you the scale again. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. So as we know, the one note that's sharp in this key is F sharp. So G major has one sharp. Everything else is natural. All right. So again, what we're going to find is we're going to find that the chord qualities are going to be exactly the same in E minor and G major. And the key signature is going to be exactly the same in E minor and G major. So what is the relative minor of G major? Okay, well, that's the $1,000,000 question. So to find out, what we want to do is we want to play the scale up 6 notes. So you're going to play the diatonic scale of the major scale up 6 scale notes. That root then will become your relative minor key, the root of the relative minor key. So if I start on G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I land on an E. So the relative minor of the key of G major is E minor. And here's the good news. The relative minor of any major key is just going to be 6 scale steps up. Okay? In this case, G major, 6 up, is E minor. So the relative key of G major, relative minor key of G major is E minor. All right? So let's review the chords really quick, just to make sure that the harmony makes sense. So in the key of G major, the 1 chord is G, the 2 chord, A minor, 3 chord, B minor, 4 chord, C major, 5 chord, D major, and then 6 chord is E minor, and then the last chord is the funny little chord, the F sharp diminished, and then we're back to the G major, which is the 8th chord, the octave. Okay. So those are the chord qualities in G major. Now, we also went through the 7 qualities, the 7 chord qualities, but this was just the triads. All right, so now what we're going to find, like I've said before, is that in the key of E minor, the chords that I just played, the qualities are going to be exactly the same. So in the key of G major, you have an F sharp diminished. In the key of E minor, you as well will have an F sharp diminished. Key of G major, you have a G major chord. In the key of E minor, you will also have a G major chord. The only difference that the G major is the 1 chord in the key of G major, but in E minor, it's going to be the 3 chord. It's the 3rd chord, okay? So the chord qualities don't change, just the order of the chords, depending on whether you're in E minor or G major, all right? So for E minor, so let's go through G major one more time. So G major is the 1 chord in the key of G major, A minor, 2 chord, B minor, 3 chord, C major, 4 chord, D major, 5 chord, E minor, 6 chord, F sharp diminished, 7th chord, and then G major, the octave, is the 1 chord again. So every chord that I just played is not going to change. It's going to be the same in the key of E minor. The only thing that changes is now the E, which is the 6th step of the G major scale, becomes the 1 of the E minor scale. Okay? So just to kind of refresh our memory on the minor scale, natural minor. So we have a root, major second, minor third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, minor sixth, minor seventh, and the octave. And for pitches, it would be E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, and then E. All right, so when we harmonize it, again, we're going to come up with the same system as the G major, but we're starting with E minor. So E minor is the 1 chord now. F sharp diminish is the 2 diminished chord. G major, as I stated before, is the 3 chord. Then we have A minor, is the 4 chord. B minor is the 5 chord. C major is the 6th chord of E minor. D major is the 7th chord of E minor. And then again, we end on the 1 chord, E minor. Okay? So you can see that the chord qualities haven't changed. It's just the order of the chords now. All right? Okay. So I'll get deeper into the theory of this as well in my theory videos. But again, I want to try to keep this more about songwriting and not as much about harmony right now. But hopefully that gave you just a basic understanding of the harmony between the G major and E minor keys. All right, so how are we going to use this in our progressions, in our songs? I'm going to talk about a word that I'll get into depth more. I might try to do just a video on this particular subject, but I just want to mention it now because it's going to help you to understand why we're doing this and how this concept can be used for songwriting. So there's a word called prosody, and prosody just simply means that the emotion of all of the aspects of the song are complementing one another. In other words, they're agreeing. The harmony is agreeing with the lyric in the emotion that it's creating. So how do we do that, and what's an example of that? So for instance, I'm going to give you guys a progression based on a verse and a chorus. And this happens a lot with songwriters. A lot of people write tunes this way. Let's say the lyric in the verse is more melancholy. It's sadder. Maybe it's a situation that we went through, a tragedy, or somebody died, or whatever. Just a point in life where we're feeling pain and we're feeling sorrow. And let's say that the chorus then is sort of the resolution of that, or maybe we've come out of that season of our life and we're in a way better place where there's sunshine and there's happiness. And so that's going to be our chorus lyric. Is there a way that we can, through our chord progression, is there a way that we can complement those emotions that we're experiencing through our lyric in each one of those sections? And the answer is yes. And this is what we call prosody. So for the melancholy verse, we can use the relative minor key. And in this case, it could be any key, but in this case, we're in the key of G. So the relative minor in the key of G would be E minor. So in our verse, to match up with the emotion of the lyric, we can use the minor key. And then for the chorus, to match up with the sort of happy, we've conquered this trial in our life feeling, we can go to the major key, which is always going to give you a brighter feel. Remember, the minor key is going to give a sadder, sort of melancholy feel, whereas the major key is always going to have a brightness to it, at least more than the minor key. Okay, so this is one way that we can accomplish what I call the prosody, matching the emotion of our song with our harmony to our lyric. Okay, all right. So I wrote a progression, so let's look at that progression. We're going to start out in E minor, and each section is going to be 8 bars. So we'll have an 8 bar section of the verse, and then we'll have an 8 bar section of the chorus. And what you're going to find is that between the verse and the chorus, there's going to be a couple chords that are going to kind of transition us back and forth. And I'll point those out as we come to them. So the first part, we're in the key of A minor. So again, each chord will be one measure. So I'm going to play a bar of E minor. Then I'm going to play a bar of B minor. So the 1 chord, E minor, 5 chord, B minor. Then I'm going to play the 4 chord, A minor. And then I'm going to go back to E minor, the 1 chord. So that's a 4-bar phrase right there. Then I'm going to go to a C chord, which is the 6th chord in E minor. Then I'm going to go to an A minor chord, and then which is the 4 chord in E minor. Then I'm going to go to the D chord, which is the 7 chord in E minor, but it's also sort of setting us up. It's a 5 chord in G major. It's setting us up to get to G major now. And to do that, I'm going to include the 7th on the D chord. So now it becomes a D7. And then that D7 leads us to the chorus. There's the 1 chord in G major, right? So the G major chord. Then we have the 5 chord, which is D. Then we have A minor, and then we have C. So A minor was the 2 chord in G, C is the 4 chord. Back to G, and then D, 1 and 5. Then we go A minor, the 2 chord, and then I'm going to go to B minor, which is the 3 chord in G major, but it's also the 5 chord in E minor. So the 5 chord wants to resolve down to the tonic. Even though it's not dominant, it still has like that root motion of 5 to 1. So then from there we go back to E minor, and we're back in the verse, okay? So let me play that for you. So 1 bar of E minor, E minor. So this is the verse. A minor, back to E minor. C major, A minor. I'll play A minor 7 just for the heck of it. D major, and then D7. This leads us to the chorus, G, and it's brighter, right? It's going to match the lyric better. D major, now A minor, C, G major, sorry, D major, A minor, and then B minor, and then back to E minor, back to the verse. So you can see that you know the verse has a different feel than the chorus because of the chords. And when you put this along with the lyric, the verse being more sad and the chorus being more bright, you're going to see that these are matching up, and the prosody is really locking those two sections together. So this is a good way, you guys, to bring your emotion through the lyric and into the chord progression, and making your song that much stronger, because when those two things link up, it's really affecting the emotion of the listener. Okay? All right. So a couple takeaways, right, that we covered in this lesson. For every major key, there's a relative minor key. And for every minor key, there's a relative major key. Try to match this prosody in your writing. So if you have a more up, happy lyric, then you're going to think more major. If you have a more sort of solemn, sort of sad lyric, then you can think of more minor. Now, also remembering that it's a really good idea to mix these relative keys within the context of one song. And it, again, like I said before, it's done a lot by a lot of different composers. So many songs I I couldn't even begin to tell you how many songs use this approach. Okay, so I hope that helped. Try that out. Try to write something using this concept, and it doesn't always have to be verse sad, chorus happy. It could be the other way around too. And it's not that you can't mix and match, like, having a sad lyric and maybe major chords. It's not that you can't do that. But again, this concept of prosody is really nice because it really connects all your emotions of the lyric and the chord progression. Okay? All right, you guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care.